Hi, my name is David Whitlock, and I'm a Sergeant Homicide Detective for State Police. What I'm about to share with you is a story that will leave you breathless. But before I dive into the many layers of this story, let me take you back to where it all began for me. As a young boy, I was fascinated by the idea of being a police officer. I wanted to be a hero, a guardian to my community, and a symbol of hope in times of despair. I dreamed of walking the streets, knowing that people looked up to me and that I was making a difference. But life had other plans. My mother's brutal murder, when I was just a child, left an indelible mark on my life. The pain, the fear, and the sense of helplessness that followed were overwhelming. My father, unable to cope with the loss, turned to alcohol, and I became the target of his rage. The beatings and the countless nights spent wondering why all took a toll on me. But it was on the day I finally found the courage to stand up for myself, to fight back against the abuse, that I knew I was meant to join the police academy. I was driven by a desire to protect others from suffering the same fate as my mother, and me, to bring justice to those who had been wronged. As I navigated the police academy, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong with my mother's case. The fact that it remained unsolved, that her killer was still out there, haunted me. It was then that I set my sights on becoming a detective, determined to uncover the truth and bring closure to my family. The FBI's Violent Crimes Unit was my ultimate goal, but I knew it was a long shot. Still, I was driven by a fierce determination to make a difference. It was during my time as a patrol officer that I met Felicity Newman, a brilliant and kind-hearted woman who worked in the forensics unit. We fell deeply in love, and our relationship blossomed into a beautiful partnership. We had 2 daughters together, and for a while, it seemed like I had finally found some semblance of peace. But as I delved deeper into my work, I began to spiral out of control. The cases I worked on, the horrors I witnessed, and the weight of my mother's unsolved murder all took a toll on my mental health. I became increasingly aggressive, impulsive, and obsessed with solving cases. My promotion to sergeant detective was a testament to my hard work, but it wasn't enough to satiate my hunger for justice. I continued to push myself to the limit, often at the expense of my relationships and my own well-being. My struggles with alcohol began to surface, and I became a shadow of my former self. When I mistreated a witness, my captain saw fit to relocate me, hoping that a change of scenery would help me find my footing again. But it was too late. The damage was done. My wife, Felicity, had already seen what my job was doing to me, and she had tried to stage an intervention. She urged me to take a leave of absence, to focus on my mental health, and to rediscover the man I once was. But I was too far gone, too consumed by my own demons. I lashed out at her, telling her she couldn't understand my motives, that she didn't know what it was like to walk in my shoes. And with that, she left me. Now, I find myself in Long Beach, Washington, a small coastal town that's a far cry from the hustle and bustle of Portland, Oregon. The high-profile cases I used to work on, like the murder of Milujita Sarah, seem like a distant memory, but the pain, the anger, and the sense of injustice still linger. As I sit here, reflecting on my journey, I'm reminded of the words of a wise old colleague. The line between good and evil is thin, and it's easy to get lost in the gray. I've walked that line for far too long, and now, I'm not sure which side I'm on. But I do know one thing. I'm ready to face the darkness head-on, to confront the demons that have haunted me for so long, and to find a way to redeem myself, no matter the cost. The rain pours down outside, casting a gloomy shadow over the small town. The sound of the droplets hitting the pavement is like a constant reminder of the turmoil that brews within me. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of my past bearing down on me. But I'm not one to shy away from a challenge. I'm a detective, a seeker of truth, and a warrior against injustice. And I'm ready to take on whatever Long Beach has in store for me. Little do I know, the horrors that await me in this small town will test my resolve, push me to the limits of human endurance, and forced me to confront the darkest corners of my own soul. The darkness crept in like a thief, shrouding the small town of Long Beach in an eerie silence. It was Monday, September 12th, 1994, a night that would forever be etched in my memory. I was huddled in my rundown apartment, nursing a drink in what I had attempted to turn into a study, when the dispatcher's voice crackled through the radio, shattering the stillness. Responding to a welfare check on a Ms. Janice Smith. Her daughter was supposed to have dinner with her an hour ago, but she never showed. This is Jennings. Patrol Officer 1223. The words sent a chill down my spine. I knew that tone, that sense of urgency. Something was wrong. 10-4. 23. The dispatcher replied, her voice firm but laced with a hint of concern. The next few minutes were a blur of radio chatter, the sound of sirens piercing the night air, and the rustling of papers as I grabbed my notes and headed out the door. I didn't need to be called. I was already on my way. As I arrived at the scene, a sense of dread settled over me. The house on Ocean Avenue was bathed in the faint glow of police lights, casting an otherworldly aura over the surrounding homes. The forensics team was already on site, their white suits a stark contrast to the darkness that seemed to seep from every pore of the house. I met up with Locke and Johnson, their faces grim and determined. Officer Johnson and Locke, can you interview surrounding bystanders if they witnessed anything? I asked, my voice firm but controlled. Sure thing, Johnson replied, her eyes scanning the area as if searching for any sign of the perpetrator. This was where my report began. After concluding my investigation, I met up with Locke and Johnson once more. Well, we got one confirmed witness and a possible witness, Johnson said, her voice low and serious. Who do you want to speak to? Both of them, I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. We asked the two witnesses to meet us at the Long Beach police station. I waited in the interrogation room, my notes at the ready. As Jen Hazer entered, she appeared distressed, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. Good evening, Jen, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Quite a tragedy to strike right across your house, isn't it? You guys don't think it's me, right? She asked, her voice trembling. Because I didn't do anything. Janice was like a mother to me. I gave her a reassuring smile, trying to put her at ease. No, not unless you give us a reason to, I said, my eyes locked on hers. Now, you told Locke you saw something, right? Yeah, I saw a guy walking out of the house casually, so I didn't think much of it, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He did look like he was struggling to do something, right? What did you see after that? Nothing, she said, shaking her head. I was busy, so I looked away, and when I looked back out, he was gone. What was he wearing? Did you see what he looked like? Her brow furrowed in concentration. It was kind of dark. I think he was wearing black jeans with a white t-shirt and a baseball cap. And no, I couldn't see his face. I nodded, making a mental note of the description. Okay, Jen. Thank you. If you remember anything else, let us know. After Jen left, Clark Santana entered the room, his demeanor calm and collected. Good evening, Clark, I said, trying to gauge his reaction. How are you? I'm okay, he replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. Why am I here, though? I leaned back in my chair, my eyes locked on his. Just need you to answer a few questions. Johnson said you were on Hanson Lane, the connecting street to Ocean Avenue, at approximately 9:25 p.m. Is this correct? He hesitated, his eyes darting around the room. Yeah, I think so. I leaned forward, my voice firm. Did you see anything strange? He shook his head, his expression neutral. I don't think so. What is this about? I watched him closely, searching for any sign of deception. A woman was murdered, Clark. So, are you sure you didn't see anything? His eyes widened, a look of shock crossing his face. Holy shit. Wait. Actually, now that you mention it, there was this guy who was carrying something. It looked like it might be covered in blood, but I wasn't sure. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't think to tell anybody? He shrugged, his expression sheepish. I didn't know him. Could have been blood, could have been paint. It was dark. And it ain't my job to stop people from committing crimes. I nodded, making a mental note of his statement. Right. Did you get a look at his face? He shook his head. Not a good one. He was a white guy. I can tell you that much. I thanked Clark and sent him on his way, my mind reeling with the implications of what he had seen. As I compiled my report, the details began to paint a chilling picture. On September 12, 1994, Monday, I responded to a call from a patrol officer called to do a welfare check. Officer Jennings, badge number 1123, informed me he saw an open door, approached, and discovered the body of Janice Smith. We knew because she had her purse on her with her ID. Arrival on scene, 9:52 p.m. The front door was closed because of Officer Jennings' mistake, but there was left a trail of blood leading from the entrance to the middle of the hallway, implying the murderer entered the front. In the middle of the hallway is where Ms. Smith's body lay. A bloody handprint on the wall, presumably Ms. Smith's. The victim's body was positioned facing the ceiling. Defensive wounds on her hands and arms. She had six cuts on her right arm, and three cuts on her left arm, two cuts on her right hand, and one on the left. She had 12 stab wounds. The stab wounds were on the left side of her body, meaning if the suspect was in front of her, he is most likely right-handed. The temperature was 69 degrees Fahrenheit outside and 72 degrees Fahrenheit in the house. The victim's clothing was stained with blood, except for her jacket, implying the murderer changed her clothing for whatever reason. The kitchen had a missing knife from the block, a possible weapon that was never found on or near the property. A shoe print was found next to the body, size 14 in men's. The suspect was probably tall in stature. Forensics would get back to us with the exact shoe type, but for now it's not much. With all the information gathered, the suspect is presumably a white male, approximately 6 feet tall, with a size 14 shoe in men's. As I finished my report, a sense of unease settled over me. Something didn't add up. Jen hadn't seen the killer carrying anything, but Clark had. It's possible she just missed it because she was at a 35-foot distance. The torn piece of cloth soaked in blood, found outside, seemed like a deliberate attempt to leave a trail. But why? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dealing with a calculating killer, one who had planned every move with precision. The darkness outside seemed to press in around me, a reminder that this was just the beginning of a long and twisted journey. I retired to my apartment, my mind racing with possibilities. The drink in my hand seemed like a poor attempt to calm the storm brewing inside me. I passed out drunk that night. The morning brought a new angle. Clark lingered in my mind, but my gut told me he was a dead end. Sometimes the closest wounds cut deepest, so I turned my attention to family. With Detective Johnson riding shotgun, we set out to interview the victim's inner circle, starting with her daughter Rachel, who never got to have that final dinner, and her brother. The suburban silence felt heavy as we pulled up to Rachel Smith's house. Through beveled glass, I watched her shadow approach, each step measured and careful. We knocked on the door. Ms. Rachel Smith? I kept my voice soft. I'm here about your mother, Janice. She opened up her door. Her eyes flickered with something. Grief, fear, or maybe both. This is about last night? The living room she led us to was picture perfect, like something out of Better Homes and Gardens. She even served tea in Danish, playing the perfect hostess while her mother lay cold in the morgue. Something about that didn't sit right. Can you tell us about last night? You were supposed to go to dinner with your mother, correct? Where and when? Johnson asked. The Cove, she said when I asked about their dinner plans. We were supposed to meet at 9:30. Johnson watched her like a hawk, catching every micro-expression. Was your mother in any kind of trouble? Debt collectors? Threats? No, nothing like that. Rachel's hands trembled slightly around her teacup. Mom kept her nose clean, but when Johnson suggested someone might have been sending a message to Rachel herself, I saw it. That split-second flinch, gone as quick as it came, like a tell in poker. If you knew where to look, You're sure there was absolutely no reason anyone would want to cause harm to your mother? I asked as I leaned in and examined her face. She looked at me with an empty expression. No, Mr. Whitlock. The rest of the interview was a lot of nothing until she eventually said she was distressed and had to plan the funeral. She's hiding something, I muttered as we walked to the car. I lit a cigarette, watching the smoke curl against the gray sky. Yeah, but what? Johnson asked. The brothers' place was another world entirely. Jeremy Smith lived in a wooden fortress just outside Long Beach, where the trees grew thick and nosy neighbors were scarce. The inside looked like a tornado had set up permanent residence, newspapers, clothes, and broken memories scattered everywhere. I don't want to talk to no pigs. He growled through the crack in his door, but Johnson worked her magic, and soon we were navigating the chaos of his living room. We just want to help Mr. Smith, Johnson said as she held her hand out, but Mr. Smith smacked it away and turned his head. I don't believe ya, Mr. Smith. Apologized to Ms. Johnson. That's no way to act towards a woman. He looked feebly at me, then at my partner. I'm sorry, ma'am. She didn't say anything. Instead looked at me like I had done something wrong. So I took a page out of her book and tried to connect with the man. Look, sir, the reason I became a detective is because my mother was brutally murdered. We could never find the killer, even after I tried myself. So I promise you, I have Janice's best interest in heart. I will find her murderer and put him behind bars. Mr. Smith sighed and looked up at us. For the first time, I saw a genuine man who was hurt and confused. Not a strange, old, angry man. Rachel, that kid's been getting Janice into trouble since she was born. I took out my notepad. This was our biggest lead yet. What do you mean? She'd been a troublemaker. She was stealing from stores, getting banned from restaurants for dining and dashing. Shit, when Janice tried to get her to clean her act up, she got fired from her job for stealing money out the register. Where did you hear all this? Where do you think? Janice, of course. She would call me crying, saying she didn't know what to do to get her to straighten up. She sent her to live with me, but I couldn't handle the damn girl. She started stealing my beer and money, kicked her out when I came home to her smoking meth in her bedroom. Excuse me. Not that we don't believe you, but we spoke with Rachel. While she did seem distressed, she doesn't seem like the type to, I don't know, steal or indulge in drug use. Well, she's a lot better at hiding it than she was when she was a teenager. Her mom was trying to get her off the drugs again. That's why they were going to have dinner at Rachel's place. She was going to have a one-on-one intervention. I'm sorry. Did you say they were supposed to have dinner at Rachel's home? Yup. Janice said she wanted her to feel comfortable and it be in a public place. But when Rachel kept pushing for the cove, Janice gave in. She was going to do it after dinner. Me and Johnson exchanged another look. This changed everything. Right. Thank you, Jeremy. You've been a great help. If you remember anything else that might be important, let us know. I said as me and Johnson headed out. You think he could be lying? Johnson said. Huh. No, of course not. This actually paints a pretty sensible picture. There's no motive for Janice Smith. Now we have one. Janice was never supposed to be the target. We just want to help Mr. Smith, Johnson said as she held her hand out, but Mr. Smith smacked it away and turned his head. I don't believe ya, Mr. Smith. Apologized to Ms. Johnson. That's no way to act towards a woman. He looked feebly at me, then at my partner. I'm sorry, ma'am. She didn't say anything. Instead looked at me like I had done something wrong. So I took a page out of her book and tried to connect with the man. Look, sir, the reason I became a detective is because my mother was brutally murdered. We could never find the killer, even after I tried myself. So I promise you, I have Janice's best interest in heart. I will find her murderer and put him behind bars. Mr. Smith sighed and looked up at us. For the first time, I saw a genuine man who was hurt and confused. Not a strange, old, angry man. Rachel, that kid's been getting Janice into trouble since she was born. I took out my notepad. This was our biggest lead yet. What do you mean? She'd been a troublemaker. She was stealing from stores, getting banned from restaurants for dining and dashing. Shit, when Janice tried to get her to clean her act up, she got fired from her job for stealing money out the register. Where did you hear all this? Where do you think? Janice, of course. She would call me crying, saying she didn't know what to do to get her to straighten up. She sent her to live with me, but I couldn't handle the damn girl. She started stealing my beer and money, kicked her out when I came home to her smoking meth in her bedroom. Excuse me. Not that we don't believe you, but we spoke with Rachel. While she did seem distressed, she doesn't seem like the type to, I don't know, steal or indulge in drug use. Well, she's a lot better at hiding it than she was when she was a teenager. Her mom was trying to get her off the drugs again. That's why they were going to have dinner at Rachel's place. She was going to have a one-on-one intervention. I'm sorry. Did you say they were supposed to have dinner at Rachel's home? Yup. Janice said she wanted her to feel comfortable and it be in a public place. But when Rachel kept pushing for the cove, Janice gave in. She was going to do it after dinner. Me and Johnson exchanged another look. This changed everything. Right. Thank you, Jeremy. You've been a great help. If you remember anything else that might be important, let us know. I said as me and Johnson headed out. That's when the picture started coming into focus. Through Jeremy's bitter words, a different Rachel emerged. Not the polished woman we'd met, but a troubled soul with a history of theft, drugs, and burning bridges. The kind of history people try to bury. But it was one detail that made everything click. The dinner was supposed to be at Rachel's house, not the cove. A last-ditch intervention disguised as a mother-daughter dinner, derailed by Rachel's insistence on public ground. Johnson wasn't convinced. Jeremy's not exactly a sterling witness. Maybe not, I said, watching the trees thin out as we drove back towards civilization. But what if Janice Smith was never the target? The final piece came from Amy Shue, Rachel's co-worker, in the sterile break room of their workplace. She confirmed what Jeremy had started. Rachel's demons weren't as buried as she pretended. Drug use, a mysterious dealer, unpaid debts. State your name, please. Right? Amy Shue. Thank you. Is that German or Chinese? German. Is this about Rachel's mom? So you already know? News gets around quick here. Indeed. As far as you know, does Rachel struggle with drug use or addiction? Wait, what? Why are we talking about Rachel? I thought her mom was the one who was murdered. Ma'am, anything I ask you about is relevant to our ongoing investigation. Please answer honestly. Right. I don't think so. Amy, please. The fate of this investigation currently hinges on how you answer these questions. The woman sighed and looked out the window. Her eyes became distant. Yeah, a little bit. What drugs? Look, Rachel isn't a bad person. Please don't get her in any TRO dash, Miss Shue. No one is going to get in trouble for doing drugs. As far as I know, mostly meth. Nothing else really. She struggles with drinking too. Do you know who she gets her drugs from? I really don't. She just refers to him as her guy. Okay. As far as you know, has she stolen from this person? Not paid them? Anything like that? I don't know, she's not super open about it. Maybe one time she's talked about cheating him, but I think she still buys from the same dude, so I can't imagine it's ever been anything that bad. Right. Thank you, Amy. That's all. Back at the station, I typed up my report, the keys clicking like dominoes falling into place. A daughter with secrets, a mother who tried to help, a dealer who might have sent the ultimate message. Chief Brown's office felt smaller than usual as he read my warrant request, his forehead furrowed. On November 13th, 1994, Tuesday, 3 interviews were conducted, one with Rachel Smith, Janice Smith's daughter, Jeremy Smith, Janice Smith's older brother, and Amy Shue, Rachel's friend, based off me and Detective Johnson's findings. It is my belief that Janice Smith was not the intended target of this brutal attack. Instead, it was meant for Rachel Smith, the victim's daughter. After conducting an interview with Jeremy Smith, after Rachel Smith's initial interview, it is my belief that Rachel has not been truthful about her character or about this situation. It is also my belief that the suspect is likely her drug dealer or someone affiliated with said person. I would like to request a warrant for surveillance on Rachel Smith's house, as I believe if we can catch her buying drugs off someone, that will lead us to the suspect. A warrant, Whitlock, based on what probable cause? With all due respect, Chief Brown, The report speaks for itself. My voice stayed steady, but my fingers were already drumming against my thigh. The chief's eyes narrowed. What? Because some pack rat and a colleague say so? This isn't just another murder, sir. The deeper I dig, the more convinced I am we're looking at something bigger. Whitlock. He leaned forward, his desk creaking under his weight. Get me concrete evidence the victim's daughter is involved, or there's no warrant. End of discussion. Sir, I've got 2 separate interviews pointing to. His fist hit the desk. I said concrete evidence. Damn it. I stormed out, the door slamming behind me hard enough to rattle the glass. My mind raced with possibilities, each darker than the last. Was he deliberately stonewalling the investigation? No. Maybe he was just being cautious. With vultures from the press already circling, one wrong move could blow the whole case. False confessions, contaminated evidence, mass hysteria. We'd seen it all before. Back home, 3 shots of whiskey in, my judgment got cloudy enough that calling the state homicide captain seemed like a brilliant idea. Hello? Charles. My voice came out louder than intended. Dave. He sounded like I'd just woken him. It's midnight. For Christ's sake. The words tumbled out. Chuck, I need your take. Got solid intel the victim's daughter's involved, but the chief's blocking my warrant. Technically don't need his blessing. So if I go around him... Jesus. Dave, are you drunk? You're slurring worse than a rookie after his first homicide. Listen. Just listen. The whiskey made my tongue thick. This case, it's like my mother's all over again. I can't let them slow me down. Not this time. You'll get yourself thrown off if you pull this cowboy stuff. Play it straight. Dave. But Charles. I know. God damn it. His voice cut through my alcohol haze. This is exactly what happened with your mother's case. Why do you think we transferred you there in the first place? Reality hit like a bucket of ice water. The absurdity of drunk dialing my captain crashed down on me. Right. Don't get sulky. Last time you went off script, we had to salvage your career. Stay in your lane this time. Understood? Yes, sir. Sorry about... I paused, my shame really setting in. All this. Get some sleep. The line went dead. He was right. Follow procedure. Build the case brick by brick. Play it safe. But 20 years of detective work had taught me one thing. When your gut screams loud enough to wake the dead, you listen. So before passing out that night, I did the one thing that could either make my career or break it. I filed for the warrant. The next couple of days, I'm simply waiting on a judge's signature, trying not to think about the consequences. Interestingly, the autopsy results just landed on my desk, and let me tell you, what we found in that report makes my gut instinct look like a whisper compared to the storm that's coming.
If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a chilling story. Your support helps us create even more thrilling content, and we're so grateful to have you with us on this terrifying journey. Thanks for watching, and remember, once you subscribe, the nightmare never ends.